If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Chapter 1: The Eternal Word, Language as the Foundation of Reality in Hindu Thought. Part 1: Vak, the goddess of speech who preceded creation. I am Vak. I move through all things. I hold all worlds together. I am the one who gives the gods their power. Without me, they cannot eat. Without me, they cannot see. I go before them, and I am the first to speak. I was there before the sky was made, before the earth was placed, before any eye had opened. I was already moving, already speaking. I live in the water. I live in the sky. I stretch across all living things, every creature that breathes, every god that shines. I touch all of them, and I hold them all inside my breath. The one who knows me, who sees me clearly, who hears what I truly am, that one I love. I make that one strong. I make that one a seer, a wise one, a knower of truth. Many people hear my sound. They hear the words I carry, but they do not see me. They do not know the one who is speaking. I stay hidden from them. I do not give myself to those who look without care, but to the one who gives fully, who pours out the holy offering, who searches with a pure heart. To that one I show myself. I am not made by human hands. I was not learned in any school. No person gave birth to me. I came before all of that. I am the one who made the world speakable. I am the reason anything can be known, named, or understood. All the gods drink from me. All the worlds rest on me. This is what I, Vak, say to you. Part 2: Shabda, Sound as the Primal Substance of the Universe. Before the world had any shape, before there was light or darkness, before anything could be seen or touched, there was sound. This is what the ancient teachers said. They called it Shabda. And they did not mean the kind of sound you hear with your ears. They meant something much deeper. They meant the first movement, the first stir, the first trembling in the great empty space called Akasha. The wise ones taught that everything in this world is made of 5 subtle things. They called these the Tanmatras, and the first of them, the one that came before all the others, was Shabda, sound. After sound came feeling, then form, then taste, then smell. Everything you can touch, see, or know came after that first trembling of sound in the empty space. Think of it this way. Before the fire shows itself, before you can see the flame or feel its heat, something happens first. A subtle movement begins. That movement, at its most primary level, is Shabda. The seers of the Vedas saw this not as a poetic idea, but as a true description of how the world comes into being. In the Upanishads, the teacher spoke clearly. From Akasha, the great space, all things are born, and Akasha itself is known through Shabda. Space and sound belong to each other. You cannot separate them. Where there is space, there is the possibility of sound, and where there is sound, something can exist. This is why sound is not just something you hear. Sound is the substance behind all things. It is the first layer of the real world. Everything else, fire, water, earth, air, rests on top of it, the way a house rests on its ground. The sages who sang the Vedas understood this. They did not treat their words as simple human speech. They knew that when a true word is spoken with full understanding, it touches the same original force that first made the world possible. This is why Shabda is sacred. This is why language in these teachings carries a weight that no ordinary word can fully describe. Part 3: Aum, the primordial syllable that contains all thought and reality. From this ground of sacred sound, we now come to the one syllable that holds everything together. It is Aum. The Mandukya Upanishad speaks of Aum in this way. Aum, this one word is all of this. Everything that was, everything that is, and everything that will be, all of it is Aum. And whatever goes beyond time itself, that too is Aum. This is not a small claim. The teachers of this Upanishad are saying that every word ever spoken, every thought ever thought, everything that has ever existed, all of it comes out of this one syllable. Aum is not a sound you make during prayer and then set aside. It is the root from which all sound grows, the way all rivers come from rain, and all rain comes from the sky. The Upanishad then explains that Aum has 4 parts. The first is the sound A. This is the waking state, the world you see with open eyes, the world of daily life and ordinary things. The second is U. This is the dreaming state, the world inside the mind when the body is at rest. The third is M. This is the deep sleep state, a place with no dreams, no thoughts, and yet the self still exists there, quiet and full. The fourth part is silence, the stillness that comes after the sound of Aum fades. This silence has no name. It is pure knowing, with nothing added to it. These 4 states are not just about sleep and waking. They are the 4 levels of all that a person is. And Aum holds all 4 inside itself, the way a single seed holds the whole tree. The teachers say that all human speech is a movement away from this one sound. When you speak, you take what was whole and divide it into words. But the words, even when divided, still carry the life of Aum inside them. This is why speech is never just noise. Every true word is a small return to that first sound, the one that was here before anything else was. Part 4. The 4 levels of Vak. How language descends from pure consciousness into speech. Now from Aum, from that one whole sound, comes something more. The teachers speak of 4 steps that language takes as it moves from the deepest place inside all things, down into the words we speak out loud. The first step is called para. This is not yet speech. It is not even thought as we know it. It is the place where meaning lives before it has any shape at all. It rests inside pure knowing, the way light rests inside the sun before it moves outward. There are no words here. There is no sound. There is only the fullness that holds everything, quiet and complete. The second step is called pashyanti. Here something stirs. Meaning begins to take a form, but not yet in words. It is more like seeing the whole of something at once, before the mind has broken it into parts. The seer sees the thought whole, the way you see a fruit before you describe its color, its smell, its taste separately. It is still one thing, one seeing, not yet divided into language. The third step is called madhyama. Here the thought begins to take the shape of words inside the mind. You have not yet spoken, but the words are already forming, moving through the inner space like a river finding its path. This is the place where thinking and language meet, where meaning begins to dress itself in sound before that sound reaches the lips. The fourth step is called Vārtṛhari. This is the word as it leaves the mouth. This is speech as you hear it, the sound that moves through the air and reaches another person's ears. By this point, the one whole meaning that began in para has traveled all the way down and become a word. But know this well. These 4 are not separate things happening one after the other. They are 4 layers of the same one act. The way a single wave has depth, motion, surface, and sound all at once. Thought and word are not 2 things. They rise together at every level, each holding the other, each making the other possible. This is why the teachers say that true speech is not made in the throat. It is made in the deepest place of being, and the voice is only where it finally becomes known to the world. Part 5. Devavāṇī. Why Sanskrit was considered the language of consciousness itself. Now hear this. Among all languages that people speak upon this earth, Sanskrit was held to be something different. It was not made by men sitting together and agreeing on names for things. It was not built up slowly over time, the way ordinary tongues are built. The teachers said that Sanskrit was Devavāṇī, the language of the gods. And by this, they did not mean something poetic or beautiful to say. They meant it as a plain and serious truth. In the understanding of the Vedic seers, every sound in Sanskrit carries within it the very nature of the thing it names. When you say the word Agni, you are not simply pointing to fire, the way you might point at a stone and call it a stone. The sound Agni itself holds the living principle of fire, the breath that makes it, the place in the mouth where it forms, the vibration that carries it outward. All of this was set to match, perfectly and exactly, the subtle reality of what fire truly is at its deepest level. This is a very different way of seeing language than what most people know today. In our ordinary way of thinking, words are like signs on a road. The sign is not the road itself. It just points you there. But in the Vedic teaching, a Sanskrit word is not a sign pointing at a thing. The word and the thing share the same root. They rise from the same single reality. The sound is the thing, seen from the side of speech. The teacher said this is why the Vedas must be spoken aloud, and spoken correctly, with precise attention to every sound, every length, every tone. To say the words correctly is not only to carry meaning in the mind, it is to touch the very principle of reality that the word names. A word said wrongly does not simply fail to communicate. It misses the reality entirely, the way a key cut badly will not turn in the lock. This is why Sanskrit was preserved with such great care, passed from teacher to student, sound by sound, for thousands of years. The language was not kept alive only for the sake of old books. It was kept alive because its sounds were understood to be the clearest, most direct connection between the human mind and the structure of existence itself. Chapter 2. Bhartṛhari and the Grammarian School. All thought is language. Part 1. The Vākyapadīya, a philosophical revolution in the understanding of mind. In the 5th century of the Common Era, a scholar named Bhartṛhari wrote a text called the Vākyapadīya. The word means, simply, on sentences and words. But what this text contains is far from simple. It is one of the boldest and most carefully reasoned works ever written about the nature of the human mind. At its heart, the Vākyapadīya makes a single, striking claim. You cannot think without language. There is no thought that exists before words. Every idea you have, every time you recognize something, every time you understand anything at all, language is already there, doing the work. Bhartṛhari did not say this loosely. He built this argument with great care, drawing from 3 sources that he wove together into one complete picture. The first source was the Vedas, the oldest sacred texts of India, which taught that the world itself came from divine sound. The second source was the long tradition of Sanskrit grammar, stretching back centuries to the great grammarian Panini, which had studied language with the same precision that a scientist studies nature. The third source was philosophy itself, the careful, patient examination of what the mind is, what reality is, and how we come to know anything at all. Bhartṛhari brought these 3 together and asked a question that no one had asked so directly before. What is language really at its deepest level? Not just a tool for talking, not just a collection of sounds and words, but something that goes all the way down into the structure of consciousness itself. His answer would shape Indian thought for the next 1,000 years. It would reach into Vedanta, into Tantra, into the great philosophical debates of medieval India. And it would do something even more remarkable. It would ask questions that the West would not seriously begin to ask until the 20th century. Part 2. Shabda Brahman, the absolute as pure linguistic consciousness. Hear now the teaching of Shabda Brahman as spoken in the Vākyapadīya. In the beginning, there was no silence. The root of all things, that which people call Brahman, the highest reality, was not empty. It was not dark. It was not without form. It was word. It was language. Not the kind of language you speak with your mouth, not the sounds made by a tongue and lips, but the deepest nature of awareness itself, the power that knows, that divides, that names, that relates one thing to another. This is what the great teacher Bhartṛhari said. Brahman is Shabda. The highest truth is not beyond language. The highest truth is language, in its most pure and perfect form. Do not think of this the way a child thinks of a god speaking and making the world appear. That is too small an idea. Bhartṛhari is saying something much deeper. He is saying that the very structure of knowing, the way awareness can hold one thing apart from another, the way it can connect, the way it can mean, this structure is not something that happens inside language. This structure is what language is at its deepest root. And this structure is what Brahman is. When you look at a tree and know it as a tree, something has already happened inside your awareness. A dividing has happened. A naming has happened. Even before the word reaches your mouth, your consciousness has already performed a kind of language. This is not an accident. This is the nature of consciousness itself. Awareness, by its very nature, speaks. It separates. It holds things in relation to one another. Without this power, there would be no knowing at all, only a great undivided darkness with nothing and no one to know it. All of creation, then, is not separate from this word. Creation is the self-expression of Shabda Brahman, the way pure linguistic consciousness pours itself outward into forms, into differences, into the world you see and touch and name. This is the first and greatest teaching of the Vākyapadīya, that language and reality are not two different things. Part 3. Sphota, the linguistic whole that cannot be reduced to sounds. Now hear this teaching clearly. When you speak a word, you make sounds. One sound follows another. If you say the word fire, you make 4 sounds, F-I-R-E, one after the other. They come and go, each one disappearing before the next arrives. No single sound means anything on its own. The sound F does not bring fire to your mind. The sound I does not bring fire to your mind. Yet when the word is finished, something happens. In one single moment, the meaning comes to you whole. You do not build the meaning piece by piece, like stacking stones. It arrives all at once, like a lamp suddenly lit in a dark room. Bhartṛhari called this the Sphota. The Sphota is not the sounds. The sounds are only like a hand that points to the moon. The moon is not the hand. In the same way, the sounds point towards something, and that something is the Sphota, the whole word meaning that lives untouched and undivided behind the sounds. The sounds come and go in time, but the Sphota does not come and go. It is one. It is whole. It bursts into your understanding like a flash of light, and in that flash, meaning is born. Do not think that understanding is built slowly, the way a craftsman builds a cart. Understanding comes the way the sun rises, all at once, fully, in a single moment of seeing. This is the teaching of Sphota. It says that the moment you truly understand a word, you have not collected sounds and added them together. You have received a whole thing, a living unit of meaning, into your mind. And since all thought is made of such moments, since every knowing, every recognizing, every understanding is this same flash, all thought is, at its root, a meeting of the mind with the Sphota. Thought is not something separate from language. Thought is language grasping itself, whole and at once, in the flame of a single instant. Part 4. Vikalpa. How conceptual thought is constituted by linguistic differentiation. Now consider this teaching about Vikalpa, the movement of the mind that divides, names, and separates. When the mind sees a flower, it does not simply see a flower. The mind says, "This is a flower," and it is not a stone, not a bird, not water. The mind cuts the world into pieces. It draws lines. It says, "This belongs here and that belongs there." This cutting, this drawing of lines, this is what the wise ones call Vikalpa. And where does the mind learn to cut in this way? It learns from words. A child comes into the world and sees only a river of light and color and movement. Nothing has a name yet. Nothing has a border yet. Then the child learns words. The child learns cow and tree and fire and mother. And slowly the river stops flowing as one river. It breaks into separate pools, each one with a name, each one held in place by the word that surrounds it. This is not a small thing. Once the word enters the mind, it does not simply sit there. It builds a wall. On one side is what the word names. On the other side is everything the word does not name. The mind now lives inside these walls. It looks out and it sees not raw experience, but a world already cut and shaped and sorted by language. Bhartṛhari teaches that this is not just something that happens when a child grows up. This is how the mind works at every moment. Every act of knowing, every act of recognizing, every act of thinking, all of it is Vikalpa. All of it is the mind drawing lines with the sharp edge of words. And so the person who believes they are simply looking at the world as it is, they are not. They are looking at a world their language has already built for them. They see the names, not the thing beneath the names. They live inside language without knowing it, the way a fish lives inside water, without knowing what water is. This is the heart of what Bhartṛhari is saying. Language does not come after thought. Language does not dress thought in pretty clothes after thought has already happened. Language is the thought. To think is to speak inwardly. To know is to name. And to name is to divide. Without division, without the word, the mind cannot hold a single thing before it. Part 5. The Legacy of Bhartṛhari. Influence on Advaita, Tantra, and Modern Linguistics. Bhartṛhari's thinking did not stay inside the walls of one school. It moved outward, quietly, the way a river moves through different lands and carries the same water into many places. Adi Shankaracharya, the great teacher of Advaita Vedanta, built his philosophy on the idea that all reality is one, that there is only Brahman, and that the world of many things is a kind of appearance laid over that one truth. When Shankara spoke about how the mind is caught in illusion, how it sees many things where there is only one, he was standing on ground that Bhartṛhari had already walked. The idea that language creates the world of many things, that Vikalpa is the force that cuts the one into pieces, flows directly into Shankara's understanding of Maya. The illusion is not random. It has a structure. That structure is language. In Kashmir Shaivism, the great teacher Abhinavagupta took Bhartṛhari's Shabda Brahman and carried it further into the world of Tantra. For Abhinavagupta, consciousness is not silent. It vibrates. It speaks itself into being at every moment. The universe is not made of dead matter. It is the living self-expression of a consciousness that is also pure language. Every sound, every thought, every act of knowing is the Absolute speaking itself. Abhinavagupta called this vimarsha, which means self-awareness, and he saw it as the same thing Bhartṛhari saw in Shabda Brahman. The Absolute knows itself through language. Language is not a tool the Absolute uses. Language is what the Absolute is. Centuries later, in the West, the philosopher Ferdinand de Saussure said that language is a system of differences. Words do not get their meaning from the things they point to. They get their meaning from being different from other words. This is almost exactly what Bhartṛhari said about Vikalpa. Meaning comes from division. Ludwig Wittgenstein said that the limits of your language are the limits of your world. Again, almost exactly what Bhartṛhari said 15 centuries before him. Modern cognitive scientists now speak of how language shapes the way the brain organizes experience, how people who speak different languages actually perceive certain things differently. Bhartṛhari said this was true not just for some people in some places, but for all minds everywhere, always. Language is not one tool among many that the mind uses. Language is the shape of the mind itself. What the Grammarian school saw was not a small technical point about Sanskrit sounds. It was a total account of how consciousness works, how reality appears, and how the word and the world are, in the deepest sense, the same thing. Chapter 3. The Mantra Tradition. Language that directly reshapes consciousness. Part 1. The Mechanics of Mantra. How sound patterns bypass intellect and transform mind. Hear now what the wise have always known. Sound is not merely a carrier of meaning. It is, in itself, a force that moves through you. When a student sits before his teacher and receives a mantra, he does not receive a sentence to be understood. He receives a pattern of sound whose purpose is not to inform the mind, but to reach beneath it. The ancient teachers of the Mimamsa school taught that the sounds of the Vedas were not made by any human or god. They were eternal. They existed before the world was spoken into being. The syllable was not a tool of thought. The syllable was prior to thought. This is the first great claim of the mantra tradition. that sound and consciousness share the same root. When you recite Om correctly, with the right vibration and the right steadiness, you are not describing reality, you are touching it. The Tantric teachers went further. They spoke of Nāda, the primordial vibration that underlies all that exists, and of Bindu, the still point from which that vibration arises. They taught that the human voice, when trained, can move along these same currents. A mantra correctly given and correctly repeated does not work because the practitioner has understood its grammar or its translation. It works because its shape, the precise order of its sounds, the way each syllable moves through the breath and the body, reorganizes what the teachers called the subtle body. The mind is not informed, the mind is changed. Modern researchers approaching this from a different direction entirely have noticed something that should give pause. Sustained mantra repetition produces measurable changes in how the brain processes experience. Certain patterns of sound, repeated regularly, alter default neural activity, reduce the noise of scattered thought, and appear to quiet the part of the mind that constantly produces commentary. The practitioner said this was natural. Sound was always the direct path. Understanding is slower. Vibration is immediate. This is what sets mantra apart from every other use of language. Poetry asks you to feel. Logic asks you to follow. Mantra asks nothing. It simply enters, and in entering, it begins its work. Part 2. Nāda Yoga, the discipline of inner sound and its relationship to pure consciousness. Now, from deep inside, the practice begins. The teachers of Nāda Yoga said this simply: sound does not only live outside you, it lives inside you. And if you follow it inward all the way, you will find where thought comes from. You will find the place before words. Here is how they understood it. The sound you speak aloud, that is called Vārtṛhari. It is the last stage. By the time a word leaves your mouth, it has already passed through 3 levels before it. First, it was a feeling without shape. Then it became a movement in the mind. Then it gathered itself toward form. And only then did it become a word you could say. Most people only know the last stage. The yogis went back. They sat quietly and listened, not to outside sounds, to the sound inside. At first, it is the voice in the head, the talking that never stops. They didn't fight this. They let it settle. Slowly, like muddy water becoming clear, the noise of thought would thin. Underneath it, something else was there. This is what they called the anahata nāda, the unstruck sound, a sound that no two things hitting together made. It was not a sound you produced. It was already there, before you did anything. Some heard it as a high, still hum. Some heard it like a very quiet bell that never stops ringing. The teacher said this: that hum is not separate from you. It is what you are, before you became a name, before you learned a language, before you had a single thought. The mind is made of vibration. Thought is vibration that has taken shape. When you trace vibration all the way back to its source, what you find is not silence exactly. What you find is awareness, pure and without edge, which holds all sound without being moved by any of it. This is what Nāda Yoga was pointing to. Not a technique only, a seeing. The practitioner who followed sound inward was doing the same thing that the great thinkers of Sphota and Shabda Brahman were doing with their words. They were asking, before language, what is there? And the answer was not nothing. The answer was the very ground from which all language rises, consciousness itself, present, still, and full. Part 3. Bīja mantras, seed syllables as direct keys to states of consciousness. There is a further step beyond what Nāda Yoga reveals. When the practitioner has followed sound inward and found the still ground of awareness beneath all language, a question naturally rises. Can a single sound, not a sentence, not a word with meaning, but one short syllable, carry the practitioner directly into that ground? The tradition of Bīja mantras says yes. Bīja means seed. A seed is small. It holds no visible form of what it will become. yet inside it, the whole tree waits. This is exactly how the tradition understood syllables like aim, hreem, kleem, and shreem. Each one is a single unit of sound that holds, in compressed form, an entire state of consciousness, an entire dimension of reality. These syllables do not have meanings you can write in a dictionary. You cannot translate aim the way you translate a word like fire or water. This is not a weakness. It is the point. The moment a sound carries a translatable meaning, the mind goes to the meaning. It forms a thought, then another thought about that thought, and it has already moved away from direct experience. Bīja mantras were designed to prevent exactly this movement. When the syllable hreem is sounded, the tradition teaches that it does not point toward the goddess of abundance, the way a sentence might describe her. It is her sonic form. The sound and the reality are not two separate things joined by a sign. They are one thing. The sound, when rightly sounded and held in awareness, directly awakens the quality of consciousness that the goddess represents. The practitioner is not thinking about power or grace. The practitioner is, through the sound, brought into direct contact with the state in which those qualities are alive and present. Each bija is mapped precisely. Shreem is mapped to the principle of radiance and beauty, to the energetic quality of Lakshmi, to the heart as a center of warmth and expansion. Kleem is mapped to the attractive force of love and magnetic drawing, connected to Kama and to Krishna. Aim is mapped to the principle of wisdom, the guru, the capacity of the mind to know. These mappings were not invented casually. They came from centuries of systematic inner inquiry, in which practitioners sounded these syllables in deep meditation and observed with great care what they produced in consciousness. The teaching behind this is direct. Language at its subtlest level is not a system of signs pointing to things outside itself. It is a system of forces that move within consciousness and either cloud it or clarify it, either scatter it or gather it inward. A bija mantra is a tool shaped with this understanding. It is sound as a direct act, not sound as communication. Part 4. Mantra, Memory, and the Conditioning of Consciousness through Repeated Language. This brings us to one of the simplest and most powerful teachings of the tradition. The mind is not changed by understanding alone. It is changed by what you repeat. The tradition teaches that the mind holds within it many deep grooves, called samskaras. These grooves are formed by everything you have thought, spoken, and heard, repeated over and over through your life. The way you see the world, the way you react to things, the way your thoughts move, all of this is shaped by these grooves. Most of them were not chosen. They came in through habit, through what others said, through the stories you told yourself again and again without knowing it. The teaching of japa begins here. If the grooves of the mind were formed through repeated language, then repeated language can also reform them. Japa means recitation. It means taking a divine name or a sacred sound and repeating it, quietly, constantly, with attention. Not once, not twice, thousands of times. The tradition speaks of practice counted in hundreds of thousands of repetitions. This is not exaggeration, it is instruction. The old patterns of the mind are deep, new ones take time to form. When you repeat a divine name again and again, something begins to happen beneath the level of ordinary thought. The sound begins to settle into the mind, the way water settles into dry earth. At first it seems only on the surface. With time, it goes deeper. The name begins to rise on its own, without effort, between thoughts, before sleep, at the moment of waking. This is the sign that the practice has reached the deeper layers of the mind. The tradition is clear that this is not imagination. The patterns that rise automatically in an ordinary mind, worry, desire, fear, distraction, these rose automatically because they were repeated. A mantra, repeated with care and consistency, begins to replace them. What was habitual becomes quiet. What was distant becomes near. This is what the practice of japa is. It is the slow and patient use of sacred language to reshape what the mind returns to when it is left alone. And what the mind returns to, the tradition says, is what the mind truly is. Part 5. the debate on mantra efficacy, Mimamsa, Vedanta, and Tantra in dialogue. 3 schools looked at the mantra, and each saw something different. The first school is the Mimamsa. They said, the power is in the sound itself. The Vedic words are eternal. They were not made by any person. They were not composed by any mind. They exist always, and they carry their power inside them, the way fire carries heat. If you say the sound correctly, the result must follow. Meaning does not matter. Intention does not matter. The sound itself does the work. This is why, they said, even a priest who does not understand what he is saying can still perform the rite, and the rite will work. The word is not a tool made by man. The word is the thing itself. The second school is the Vedanta. They said this cannot be right. A parrot can make the same sounds. A river makes sounds too, but neither the parrot nor the river is changed by the sound it makes. What matters is what the mind brings to the word. If you say the name of the divine without knowing what it means, without turning your heart toward its meaning, the sound passes through you like water through a broken pot. Nothing stays. It is the understanding, the intention, the love behind the word that gives it its power. The word and the meaning must come together inside the one who speaks. The third school is the Tantra. They said, both of you are missing something. The sound matters, yes. A meaning matters, yes. But neither is enough on its own. A mantra given without initiation is like a seed dropped onto stone. The same seed placed into earth that has been prepared grows. The guru prepares the earth. Through initiation, the guru places Shakti, living power, into the mantra and into the student at the same time. Without that transmission, the mantra is a shell. With it, the same syllables become alive. The student does not just repeat words. The student carries a fire that was passed to them, flame to flame, in an unbroken line reaching back to the source. These 3 schools were not arguing about small things. Each answer rested on a different understanding of what language truly is and what the mind truly is, and how the two touch each other. Together they show that the tradition never treated this as a simple question. Chapter 4. Advaita Vedanta. Language shapes the illusion, but the self is beyond words. Part 1. Nāma-Rūpa. How name and form together construct the experienced world. Listen carefully, child of the earth. This is what the wise ones saw clearly, long before our time. In the beginning, before anything was made, there was only one. No separation, no name, no form. Just pure, quiet being, full and complete. Then came the world, and with the world came names, and with names came forms, and with forms came the feeling that things are separate from each other. The wise ones called this Nāma-Rūpa, name and form. They saw that when you give something a name, you also give it a shape in your mind. The name and the shape come together, always. You cannot have one without the other. Think of a tree. Before you learned the word tree, what did you see? Just something standing there. But the moment you learned the word, the world changed. Suddenly there was a tree, something separate, something with edges, something that is not you. This is what the teachers of Advaita Vedanta were pointing to. They said, the whole world you see around you, every object, every person, every thought, is built from names and forms placed on top of the one, which has no name and no form. The great teacher Shankara said it plainly. The one which is Brahman is like still water. The names and forms are like waves. The waves look different from each other. They seem to be separate things, but they are only water. There is nothing in them that is not water. The words tree, person, time, cause, these are not small things. These words are the very bricks that build the world you experience every day. This is what the wise ones called Maya, a great covering that hides the truth that everything is one. Maya does not mean the world is fake, the way a dream is fake when you wake up. It means the world is not what it appears to be. It appears to be full of separate things. But underneath the names and the forms, there is only the one, unchanged, undivided, always present. This is the great secret the ancient ones saw. Language is not just how we talk about the world. Language is how the world appears to us at all. Part 2. Adhyasa. How language-born superimposition creates the experience of a separate self. Now we must look closely at something even more subtle than name and form. We must look at the great mistake that happens inside us every single day in almost every thought we think. Shankara, one of the greatest teachers of this wisdom, began his most important writing, the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, by pointing to this very mistake. He called it adhyasa. Adhyasa means this: you take something that belongs to one thing and you place it onto something else. You mix them up. You confuse them. Like a man who sees a rope on the ground in the dark and thinks it is a snake. The fear is real. The snake is not. The mistake is in the mixing. This is exactly what happens to us. We look at the body and we say, I am this body. But the body is something that is seen, something that changes, something that grows old and dies. The one who sees the body, that one does not change. That one was present when you were a child. That one is present now. That one is the witness. But because of adhyasa, we mix the witness with what is witnessed. We place the witness's nature onto the body. We place the body's nature onto the witness, and then we suffer. Now here's the part that is most important for us to understand. This mixing, this adhyasa, does not happen in silence. It happens through words. The very moment you say the word I, something happens. That word reaches into the stillness of pure awareness and wraps around it. It gives awareness a name. It gives awareness a shape. It says, you are a person. You have a body. You are separate from everything around you. And awareness, which was free and open and without any edge, now seems to be a small bounded thing living inside a body. The word I does this. The word mine does this also. When you say my hand, my pain, my story, you are doing the same thing. You are taking pure experience, which simply is, and you are placing a wall around it. You are saying, this belongs to me, I own this, I am separate, and this is mine. But the truth the ancient ones saw was that there is no separate owner. There is only awareness itself, moving through experience like light through water. This is the great teaching of adhyasa. The separate self is not discovered, it is built, and it is built word by word. Part 3. Ahankara and Vikalpa. The ego as a linguistic construction. And so, if words build the wall of separation, placing I here and the world there, then you must ask, who is doing the building? The ancient ones saw clearly. There is a part of the inner being they called ahankara. This word means simply the maker of I. It is not the true self. It is a function. It is a movement inside the mind that takes everything that passes through awareness, a feeling, a thought, a sight, a pain, and says, this is mine. This is happening to me. I am the one who feels this. This is its only work. It takes the river of experience that flows endlessly through awareness, and it draws a line around a small part of it and says, this is me. But see how it does this. It does this with words. The word I, the word mine, the word me. Without these words, there is only experience moving. With these words, a self appears, a story begins, and from that story, all suffering follows. The sages of old understood this through what they called Vikalpa, which means the splitting of experience into pieces through thought. The mind takes what is whole and cuts it into parts. This is good, that is bad. This is mine, that is yours. This is inside me, that is outside me. Every cut is made with a word. Every separation lives inside language. The yoga text taught that when the mind is still, when Vikalpa is quiet, when the cutting stops, the separate self has nothing to stand on. It dissolves, not because someone destroyed it, but because it was only ever made of words in the first place. It was a story the mind kept telling, over and over, to itself. The ego is not a thing you carry, it is a habit of speaking. It is a voice inside that says I thousands of times each day. And with each saying, the illusion of separateness is made fresh again. This is why the ancient ones pointed towards silence. Not the silence of an empty room, the silence of a mind that has stopped cutting the world into pieces. In that silence, the maker of I has nothing to make. And in that stillness, something else, always there, always watching, simply remains. Part 4. Neti Neti. Why the highest truth must be approached by negating language. And so, having seen how the ego is nothing more than a word repeated until it becomes a habit, the ancient teachers faced one final problem. If the ego is made of words, and the world is made of names, then what is left when all the words are taken away? What is Brahman, the true ground of all things, when no word can touch it? The answer given in the oldest teachings is not silence born from confusion, it is silence born from great clarity. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad tells of the sage Yajnavalkya, who was asked again and again to describe Brahman. Each time he was asked, he gave the same answer: Neti, Neti. Not this, not this. He did not say this because he did not know. He said this because he knew too well. He knew that Brahman is not the sky, though the sky is vast. He knew that Brahman is not light, though light is beautiful. He knew that Brahman is not the self you feel inside, though it is closer to you than your own breath. Every word, when spoken, draws a line. It says, this thing is this and not that. The word fire means fire and not water. The word big means big and not small. This is how all language works. It cuts, it divides, it gives one thing a border. But Brahman has no border. It is not inside or outside. It is not near or far. It is not one thing among other things. It is that in which all things appear and disappear, like waves in a sea that is always still underneath. So when you say Brahman is big, you have already made a mistake, because big only has meaning next to small, and Brahman has nothing next to it. When you say Brahman is good, you have already made a mistake, because good needs bad to give it meaning, and Brahman is beyond all such pairs. This is why the teacher says, not this, not this, not to leave you in darkness, but to take away every false lamp, one by one, until only the true light remains, the one that was always shining before any word was ever spoken. Part 5. Turiya and Mauna, the states of consciousness that lie beyond language. And so, after all the words have been removed, after not this and not this has stripped away every name you thought was true, what remains? There is something that was there before the first word was ever spoken inside you. It was there before your mind woke up this morning. It was there before your first thought of the day. It does not sleep when you sleep. It does not dream when you dream. It simply is, always watching, always still. The teachers call this Turiya, the fourth, but it is not a fourth thing added on top of the first three. It is not something new. It is the one that was holding all three all along. Your waking, your dreaming, your deep sleep, without itself ever moving or changing. When you are awake, words fill your mind. You name things. You see a tree, and the word tree rises up. You feel hunger, and the word hungry rises up. When you dream, the same thing happens in a different room. Even in deep sleep, when no words come, when no thoughts come, there is still a thin cover of not knowing that lies over the self. But Turiya is under all of this. It is the pure knowing that says, I am. Not I am this, not I am that, just I am. No word can hold it. No sentence can point directly at it. Every word that tries to touch it falls short, the way a hand cannot hold light. This is why the great sage Ramana Maharshi would often sit in silence, not because he had nothing to say, but because the deepest teaching he had to give could not be put into words. His silence was not empty, it was full, more full than any speech could be. Those who sat near him in silence said they felt something shift inside them without a single word being spoken. This silence is called Mauna. It is not simply closing the mouth. It is the quieting of the inside voice, the one that is always naming, always dividing, always saying this and not that. When that voice grows still, even for a moment, what you find underneath is the self, pure, wide, without edges, without a name. And so the teaching comes full circle. Language shapes the world you see. Language builds the ego that suffers. Language creates the illusion that keeps you bound. But the one who is watching all of this, the one who sees the language rise and fall, that one was never touched by any word at all. Chapter 5. Liberation and Language. Transcending the word to know the real. Part 1. Vivartavada, the world as a linguistic appearance within Brahman. Hear now what the wise teachers of old have said about the world you see before you. Look at a rope lying on the ground in the dark. You see it, and you think it is a snake. Fear rises in you. Your heart beats fast. But when the light comes and you see clearly, you understand. There was never a snake. There was only a rope. The snake did not come from the rope. The snake was never real. It only appeared to be there. This is how the world is. Brahman is the one true reality. It has no parts. It has no edges. It does not divide. It does not change. But names and forms appear upon it, just as the snake appeared upon the rope. You see a tree, and you call it a tree. You see a man, and you call him a man. You see an event, and you give it a name. This is Nāma-Rūpa, name and form. And through name and form, the one whole reality appears to become many separate things. The world does not truly come out of Brahman the way a pot truly comes out of clay. Clay is really changed into the pot, but Brahman is not truly changed into the world. The world only appears. It is a seeming, not a becoming. This appearance, say the sages, is made through language. When you name something, you separate it from everything else. You draw a line in the seamless whole. The name creates the boundary creates the object. And so the one becomes in your eyes many. But the names are not the truth. The forms are not the truth. Underneath all names, underneath all forms, Brahman remains as it always was, whole, still, and without division. The one who knows this sees through the name to what is named. He sees through the form to what holds the form. He does not follow the word away from the real. He stays in the real and watches the words arise and pass away like waves on still water. The wave is not different from the water, but you must see the water to know this. Part 2. Kashmir Shaivism and Vimarsha. Self-awareness as intrinsically linguistic. Now, hear this truth carefully. There is a teaching that says Brahman is still and silent, that the world of names and forms is like a dream, and the one who wakes up sees that the words were never real. This is one path. But there is another teaching, and it speaks differently. In the land of Kashmir, a great teacher named Abhinavagupta looked at the same truth and saw something more. He said, Shiva, the highest God, the one who is all, is not silent like a stone. Shiva speaks. Shiva knows himself. Shiva looks at himself and says, in the deepest part of his being, I am. And that saying, that knowing of I am, is called Vimarsha. Vimarsha is not a thought the way we think thoughts. It is the very light of God's awareness turned back upon itself. And this awareness, Abhinavagupta says, has the nature of a word. Not a spoken word, not a written word, but the very movement of knowing, the very act of God recognizing himself, is like speech from the inside. This is very different from saying that words are a veil. Here, the word is not hiding the truth. The word is the truth moving. God does not stand behind language looking in. God speaks himself into being, and that speaking is the universe. The world you see around you, every stone, every body of water, every thought in your mind, is Shiva's own self-expression, moving outward through 36 steps, called tattvas. Each step is like a level of creation, going from the purest light of awareness down to the earth beneath your feet. And each step is also a level of how language and knowing work inside you. So when you think, you are not just a small creature making noise in your head. You are God's own speech returning to itself at a lower level. Your words are the echo of the first word, the word that was never spoken aloud, the word that is God knowing God. This teaching does not say, throw away language and find what is behind it. It says, Look at language more deeply, and you will find it was never separate from God at all. Part 3. Yoga and Nirodha. Stilling the linguistic mind as the path to pure awareness. Now, hear these words carefully. Patanjali, the great teacher, said this: Yoga is the stopping of the movements of the mind. That is all it is. When the mind becomes still, yoga has happened. But what are these movements of the mind? Look inside yourself right now. What do you find? You find words. You find a voice talking inside your head. You find yourself naming things, judging things, telling yourself stories. You say, this is good, that is bad, I want this, I do not want that. All of this is words. Almost everything the mind does, it does in words. This is what Patanjali saw. The mind is not quiet. The mind is like a river always moving, and the water of that river is mostly made of words and thoughts built from words. Every time you put a name to something, every time you tell yourself a story about what happened, every time you make a judgment using ideas you learned from others, that is a wave in the river. And who are you? You are not the river. You are not the waves. You are the one who watches the river. Patanjali calls this watcher Purusha. Purusha is pure seeing. It has no words. It does not think. It simply sees. But because the river of the mind is always moving, always full of words and noise, you mistake yourself for the river. You forget that you are the watcher. You think you are the words. So yoga is not about learning more words or thinking better thoughts. Yoga is about making the river still. When the mind grows quiet, when the words stop, when the stories stop, when the judgments stop, then Purusha, the pure watcher, is seen clearly. You remember what you truly are. This is why the whole path of Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 steps Patanjali teaches, works the way it does. Each step, right behavior, right posture, right breathing, withdrawing the senses, holding the attention steady, deep stillness, and finally complete absorption. Each step is taking the power away from the word-making mind, little by little, until the mind rests in silence. Language brought you to this door, but it cannot walk through it with you. Part 4. The Guru's Word. How a single sentence can shatter the illusion built by a lifetime of language. So you have walked the long path. You have sat with the teacher. You have learned to hold the breath still, to pull the senses inward, to let the word-making mind grow quiet. And now something new is placed before you. Not a practice, not a method, but a sentence. 4 words, 3 words, simple words, words that seem small, but carry something very heavy inside them. This is what the Upanishads call the Mahavakya, the great sentence. Tat tvam asi, that thou art. Aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. The teacher speaks it, you hear it, and something, if you are truly ready, breaks open inside you. Now listen carefully, because this is where the teaching becomes very strange. All your life, words have been the thing that kept you sleeping. Words gave everything a name. Names cut the world into pieces. This piece is me. That piece is you. This is big. That is small. This is now. That is then. The word built a cage, and then you lived inside the cage and forgot it was a cage at all. You thought the cage was the world. The whole teaching of Maya rests on this. Language is the tool that makes the one appear as many. The rope is made to look like a snake, and the word snake makes the fear real. So language is the illness. And yet here is the strange part. The Guru hands you a sentence, a group of words, and says this will free you. How can the very thing that bound you now be the thing that sets you free? The answer is this. The Mahavakya is not given so that you think about it. It is not a riddle to solve with the mind. When the Guru says Tat tvam asi, he is not teaching you a new idea. He is pointing your attention at what was always there. The sentence is like a finger pointing at the sun. You do not look at the finger. The finger is only useful for one moment, to turn your eyes in the right direction. But this only works if you are ready. The student who has not done the inner work will hear that thou art and think, what does that mean? They will write it down, argue about it, build a philosophy from it, and they will stay exactly where they were. The words will become more furniture inside the cage. But the student who has purified the heart, who has sat long in silence, who has already loosened the grip of name and form, that student hears the sentence, and something in them recognizes it. Not understands it, recognizes it, like hearing your own name called across a great distance. You do not have to think about whether that is your name. You simply know. The sentence does not carry the truth inside it the way a pot carries water. The sentence removes the last small veil, the idea that the truth is somewhere far away, something still to be found. When that veil falls, what remains is not an experience of something new. It is the seeing of what was never absent. The word burns itself up in the moment it does its work. This is the paradox the tradition holds without apology. Language is Maya's weapon, and yet the right word spoken at the right moment by the right mouth into the right ear can end Maya completely. The river uses its own current to carry you to the shore, and then you step out of the river. You do not take the river with you. Part 5. Silence as the Highest Language, from Dakshinamurti to Ramana Maharshi. And yet, even the Mahavakya, even the Guru's most precise and burning word, is still a word. It arises, it strikes, and it passes. The recognition it produces is not made of it. Something in the tradition knew this from the very beginning, and that knowing gave birth to a different kind of teaching altogether, one that uses no words at all. There is a form of Shiva called Dakshinamurti. He is shown as a young man sitting beneath a great fig tree, facing south. Around him sit ancient sages, men far older than he appears. They have come with questions that lifetimes of learning could not answer. He looks at them. He does not speak. And in that silence, they understand everything. This is not a story about something that happened once. The tradition holds it as the image of how the deepest truth is always given. The sages did not understand because Dakshinamurti explained. They understood because his silence showed them what was already there, in them, waiting beneath every word they had ever thought or spoken. What cannot be said can still be shown, not shown like a painting shown to the eyes, but shown the way a mirror shows you your own face. The silence of Dakshinamurti did not carry information from one mind to another. It stopped the movement that was covering what was already known. Ramana Maharshi sat in Tiruvannamalai in the 20th century and did something very similar. People came to him from every country, speaking every language. He sat quietly. Many of them felt something shift inside them, a loosening of something tight that they had not known was tight. Some of them described it as the clearest understanding they had ever received, and no word had been exchanged. Ramana said it plainly. Silence, he said, is the most powerful speech. When the mind grows still in the presence of one whose mind is already still, the stillness passes like a flame passes from one lamp to another. The fire does not travel, it simply appears where the conditions are met. This is what the whole of this long tradition about language and thought arrives at in the end. Words point, silence arrives. The deepest teaching is not given in the words of the Guru, nor even in the Mahavakya. It is given in the space the Guru inhabits, the space where thought has stopped making noise, and what remains is simply what has always been here, nameless, wordless, and whole.